finish that song?
No.
Oh,
No.
good.
So, hello, how is everybody? Last night was fun. I thought Steve's blessing of the community, of the leadership was beautiful.
Last night was wonderful. I never know what to expect with annual meetings, and that topped it. It was amazing.
They sure are different than the university ones.
I
Ours,
don't
like
think
everyone spoke, what's coming up, what we did, what budget. This was
I don't
just,
think it merits being called a meeting, frankly.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
by law, it does. So,
Since when does, that's form over substance in my
It's a
opinion.
family reunion.
in
It
any
was
event,
it was amazing. I mean, everyone was honored, and it was just beautiful. No
well,
congregation here does anything like that.
Well, all I know is the
Best
president
part-
gets off easy because when I was president each year, I had to give like a 20-minute talk about the synagogue.
Yes,
Yep.
but you have to admit, Steve, no matter how good you were, the Oneg Shabbat last night was outstanding. Okay, it was Japanese everything. I was happy. Okay, Baruch.
Hi. Great Torah.
So Don Levy is there doing our the intricate sound and light show that goes with this, and we thank him for that. Hi. Oh, see, he put himself up. Oh, that was good. He's gone. And hi, Risa. Kimberly, hi. Good morning. Good to see you.
You too.
Donna, hi. There you are. Hi. Cindy and friend.
Yeah.
Yes. And Steve and Mona. Hi. Good morning. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos. Boris. Good Shabbos. Good morning. Merle. Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Rebecca. Now Herman is here. And it's kind of like a hail and farewell for Herman. He divides his time between Temple Akiba's study group and our study group. And as it happens, Akiba is off during the summer. We're not. They're starting again. So Herman is going back to Temple Akiba until we see you again in the late spring. So Herman, Shabbat Shalom and love, and we look forward to being reunited when we
We will
can.
miss you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Okay, great. Howard,
You're a sweetheart.
good Shabbos, good to see you. Effie, if I would say Effie, you're in the dark, you would probably take that as an insult. But yeah, but you're dark. I can barely see. Susie, good Shabbos. Good. Diane, hi, good to see you. I see Arthur. Shabbat Shalom, Arthur. Good to see you. Donna, hi. Hi, Donna.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
okay.
Marina, Shabbat Shalom. Larry, always great to see you. Pat, I see water and boats. Okay, we got one more person coming on. Looks like she's related to Donna, I think. But it's taking a little time. Okay, and Karen Sarachik, we are here, and that's Stukasa. Yeah. Good to see everybody. I hope it's been warm enough for everybody. I went for my usual 3-mile walk yesterday morning, and I have to admit that I came back yesterday morning. Risa said I looked like hell, which she probably says all the time, but apparently you get really red in the face when you're all set to die from heat exhaustion.
Oh my
So
God.
it was
God forbid.
it was one of those things. But I would have to say, without being paid for this, thank God for Coke Zero. It pulled me through again. Okay. Saturday evening tonight, September 10th, I see Sukasa, I see Tamara, Shabbat Shalom, Karen. Okay, we're going great. Saturday evening, September 10th, film a love story. Enemies, a love story. I don't see Jim here, but maybe if he comes on, Mara is here. I'm just getting a lot of those bells ringing. I want to mention that Monday, September 12th, 5:30 p.m., we are having our extra class, a Zoom conversation about some really challenging topics. The justice of God, the role of God, if anything, in relating to controlling our world. We're going to have an hour on that conversation, open. People want to talk about it, fine. The only people coming are the people in this group to whom I have sent the Zoom link. But I want to say to the people out there in streaming land, if you want to join our conversation, Monday, September 12th, 5:30 to 6:30 on Zoom, send me an email and I will send you the Zoom link. But I'm not just putting it out there and it's not an invitation. I just want the people who are, involved with our study. So that is Monday, September 12th. Looking forward to it. I have no idea what's going to happen. Then Saturday, September 17th, 7 p.m. Slichot. 7 p.m. Slichot. Risa and I certainly will be there. We look forward to seeing you as well. Saturday, September 17th, 7 p.m. This is the kickoff for the high holiday season. And it's going to be, we're going to be doing it together with Temple Emmanuel. And they're going to be coming to Wilshire, and we'll be doing it together. So that's Saturday, September 17th. Friday, September 23rd, I am doing the Friday noon Torah teaching. So that Friday is September 23rd. It's a great honor to have been invited to do that. But as I was doing my calendar, I looked and said, Friday, September 23rd, no one on staff at Wilshire could be available to teach that noon Torah study. Then I looked and said, Sunday, September 25th is the Erev Rosh Hashanah. So I have a feeling I know why they called me, because they're going to be a little bit busy, and with all due humility, it's a pleasure. It's fun.
I love it. God bless everybody.
Okay. Now, I did mention Herman's departure, but we're doing some checking in. Mona, I commented to you last night, but give us 1 minute on your play reading. What happened?
I wrote a play, a full-length play called The Whale's Tale. It's an exploration of themes of fertility, loss, how do you communicate with an intelligent mammal that doesn't speak your language. It's about people who work at a SeaWorld-like aquarium, and they're really excited about the birth of an orca. And then a single female, they've been isolating the mother and the calf. The first time they let another whale into the tank, the single female kills the mother, and then manifests a great deal of love towards the calf. So my main character is charged with figuring out how this horrible thing happened. It's plunged them all into the depths of despair. The whole play was read. The audience was very attentive. They were engaged. I actually got some feedback that was helpful, which, believe me, doesn't always happen at a reading. And so I was thrilled to pieces. I had a wonderful director, wonderful actors. I'm very grateful to them. It was produced by Fierce Backbone, which is a theater company I've belonged to for a long time that's committed to developing new work. So it's all good. Now I have to get my head together to rewrite things. I heard I need to compress mostly. And then there was a science question that some people had. all the science in the play is accurate. So I did a lot of research to write this play.
Wow.
And there's only one thing that you said that was foreign to me. Compress. As a rabbi preaching on the high holidays, compress wasn't necessarily a serious goal. But okay, I mean, that's great. Mazel tov for that.
May I ask a question?
Sue, yes.
Yeah, how do you represent the whales in this?
In my play, the whale is either a sculpture or a background screen. It's a suggestive sculpture, and there are a series of soliloquies where each character addresses the whale with their thoughts and their private moments, and the whale reacts with color, fog, light, some visual effect.
That's fantastic. I think that you ought to
amazing.
like, save that for the, do it during the reading of the book of Jonah. Even though it
That's
says
what I was
fish, it's a fish, not a whale, but it fits in. That's great. Do we
That's
have
okay, because a killer whale isn't a whale either.
It's actually orcas are dolphins. But
yes, they are, and we will never say anything negative about orcas in this group, ever. Now, does anyone have any other checking in they'd like to do? I'd like to welcome Fern back from her time away in the Mediterranean, I guess. In the Mediterranean? Yeah, in the Mediterranean. Welcome back. We missed you. Hope you enjoyed swimming in the blue Aegean. I mean, what can I say? Okay.
Rabbi, may I share? I wanted to say, I went to an audition for the Kelly Clarkson show, and I'm hoping to hear back that I get picked for LA. That's my dream. And thank you so very much to the temple, because I know the rabbi leader had his hand in that I wore lavender and purple, and the whole avenue was purple and lavender. And they treated me like Liz Taylor, like Cantor Peacock. They treated you like royalty. I said, yes, dear, thank you. So we'll see what happens.
Wonderful. Good luck with that. Anyone else have
Thank
any?
you.
Yeah. Stanley, it's Doris. I just wanted to go back to that September 23rd date that you mentioned for your tourist classes.
Yeah, that's the lunchtime.
I had something down at October 12th that you resume. Did I just have that by mistake?
That's the current events, Doris.
That's current events. That's a different thing.
That's not your noon class.
That's correct. This is just, a fill-in because they were so anxious to have me teach because no one else on staff could take the time right before Rosh Hashanah. But in any event, I'm thrilled.
Will you be sending a link for the new current events class?
Yeah, everything's going to be done. Everything's going to be done, Steve.
Steve, it's already on
it
the
all
calendar
comes-
with links.
Okay.
It already comes, it comes every week, a couple of times a week for registration and links and stuff.
Yeah, we need
Oh, I
to
missed it.
move
Okay.
forward. Enough being happy with each other. Come on. Okay, any other things to share? If not, we're going to get right into the text. Anything else going on of any hopefully happy, significant?
Here, I'll take a bragging moment. Gabby tried out last night there were 40 people of all ages trying out for a dance competition number, and she was one of 15 that were selected, and she'll be doing this in LA whenever the NYCDA performance is. So we could be in LA, depending on what grandchild is doing what that weekend. We may be in charge of bringing her.
Mazel tov.
That's great.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank
This
you.
new
And
studio,
I wanna
studio
thank-
is amazing.
I want to thank you so much for agreeing to make free tickets available to anyone in the Chevra Torah. That is really
Not a problem. I can do that.
okay. Super. Now we're going to move to Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 1. The Sedra is Kitetse, Deuteronomy 22:1, and the Plout, New Plout, 1323 in the URJ commentary 1169. As I mentioned Thursday night in the posting for this week, there are 74 mitzvot listed in this Sedra. It is the greatest number of individual commandments found in any single Sedra in the Torah. And again, as I mentioned Thursday night, none of this stuff deals with sacrifice. None of it deals with observing the holidays, with what foods are kosher. None of that, none of the sacrificial stuff. What we have here in the 74 mitzvot is a totally eclectic, fascinating assortment of Jewish ethical premises, commandments, and they're terrific. Some of them problematic, but very, very interesting. And I have to say that when we look at this week's Sedra, we're really seeing the origins of whatever we understand to be normative Jewish ethics. It's here. And, you know, even though it's an old language and even though it's framed in God says to Moses, but the impact of these mitzvot guiding the Jewish moral compass is beyond compare. Really, really important. So we are in 22:1, and I can find it. Now, why did I start here? So many, many years ago, when I was a youngster, let us say many centuries ago, when I was a youngster, I started studying Gemara, started studying the Talmud. And one of the first things I studied was the Talmud on this passage. Not because it's world-shattering important, but it's kind of like a template for how the rabbis approach the Torah through their commentary. Look at this, 22:1, page 1323 in the blog. If you see your fellow Israelites, ox or sheep, gone astray, do not ignore it. You must take it back to your peer. I know that I am with regard to translation. So when it says, if you see your fellow Israelite, the Hebrew says, if you see the ox belonging to your brother. Okay, I mean, that's fine. And then it says, do not ignore it. And here I want to take umbrage. This is a very important problem. What's the issue? Vehitalamta is a really important word in Jewish ethics. You are forbidden to hide yourself from seeing it.
From seeing the ox?
From seeing the event that needs taking care of. Sometimes we're walking along and you see somebody with a problem. The standard approach for some people might be vehitalamta. They don't see. You turn your eye away, you go your way, you've not interacted with the person who has a problem. In Jewish ethical standards, it is a violation of a lo ta'aseh, a negative commandment. You may not turn aside. Now, so it says, do not ignore it. Ignore to me misses it. And not only that, if I were in the rabbi delivering sermon business, I would take this passage and say one of the worst problems we have in our country today is the incredibly rich capacity of Americans to self-blind in the face of a whole variety of social ills. And this is clear. The act of choosing not to see is a serious violation. Steve?
So let's say you do find this and you take care of it for 6 months. Your neighbor comes back and wants his ox back. Does he have any obligation to repay you for room and board or anything like that?
I don't know if we would call my ox living in your family house room and board, but okay. Steve, it's really interesting. And the Talmud goes into this with great detail. And it is as follows.
Oh, really? We went over this.
You are forbidden lahitalem. You are forbidden to blind yourself, not just once. Not just once. It says really clearly, you see the ox and it's wandering, it's lost. The Hebrew says, hashev teshivem. That's the Talmud that I studied. Why did Rabbi ask? Did they use the same verb twice? Hashev teshivem. You really have to take it back. The Talmud answers 1 time, 2 times, 5 times, 10 times. If you see it and the animal has broken free, you must return the animal. You can't say, I did it last week, it's his problem now. That's number one. Then you ask the question about room and board. The rabbis in the Talmud have a similar question. They ask, you got an ox worth, I don't know, anyone know what an ox is worth? I don't know what an ox is worth. But let's say an ox is worth $1,000. Okay, and you come across this ox wandering through the fields, nibbling as it goes. You pick it up, carry it, bring it back, bring it to your home. You're feeding it. How long do you feed the ox? And the rabbis in the Talmud, most of them weren't dumb. They said, you have to figure out what the feed costs. And when the owner comes to claim the beast, the owner must pay the cost of the feed. But, Steve Miller says, what if the owner hasn't come back yet and you've now spent $1,000 on the feed? Folks, you're the rabbi. What are you supposed to do? Any thoughts? What do you do? What do you do? You have this piggy ox who has just consumed $1,000 worth of feed. The ox is worth $1,000. What do you do? I see a hand. I see Arthur.
It is very unusual to spend that much money for that cause. You have to be rational to act upon that. This is my claim for this.
You're right. There has to be a limit. And the limit is $1,000.
Oh, $1,000.
$1,000. When you have spent the value of the ox, sell the ox. And if the owner ever comes, the owner will get the $1,000. It's all wiped out.
Effie has a hand raised.
I see a hand, but Effie, yes.
But my translation says that you shall bring them back. You don't hold it until the owner comes. You shall bring it back.
And the Talmud picks up on the very same thing. You've got to go to the internet, Google lost ox, and find the person whose ox is gone. You are supposed to look for it, but you are not obligated to leave your family and go ox traipsing across the country to find the owner. You post it, you announce it, whatever, and then it is the obligation of the owner to make their presence known. Okay? It's very clear. You don't have to change your life to find the owner, but you have to give, there's a legal frame, you have to give full effort, honest effort in trying to get the ox home. Ladies and gentlemen, what's the point? Come on. We're Reformed Jews who rarely live in societies where oxen go wandering. I mean, we have coyotes. We don't have oxen. Sukasa.
Well, two things. One, I think that it's to teach us the ethical behavior of what to do in a situation. But and that's why it's telling you, but it also looks at both sides of the coin. It looks at the person who owns the ox's rights, and it looks at the person who feeds its rights. But I'm wondering, what if you spend the $1,000 and the ox dies and the man comes back? Is he responsible to reimburse you the $1,000?
Okay, I have to admit, you got me on that as a technical question. I don't know the precise answer, but I'm going to extrapolate or interpolate or something. If the ox is dead and you have fed it over a period of time, but the ox is dead, I think things are wiped out.
Okay.
I think things are wiped out. There's no way that you have to be penalized. On the other hand, the ox died, and the owner has therefore already suffered $1,000 loss. Right?
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Stanley talking. I may be correct. It feels right, but I'm not going to say that's the absolute answer on the top. Okay?
Merle has her hand.
I'm sorry?
Merle.
I was just gonna say, I think like Susan posted in the chat, the Good Samaritan law. I remember as a child discussing with my father, who was a physician in LA, if you see an accident, do you stop as a doctor? Do you stop or not? You know, it was long before cell phones where you could call 911 and say, there's an accident at this such and such a corner. You know, they didn't know, you couldn't contact them. One of the answers that I got, my father sometimes would stop depending on the type of accident and where we were, but, and report it in whatever way he could. He would never go near the patient or the people involved in the accident. The reason being for fear of the lawsuit.
Liability.
Right, exactly. And so I think, you know, I look at this now. Last night on my way home from services, I saw a horrible accident. First, I called my husband and said, I won't be home for, I don't know how long, because I don't know my way through the neighborhood to get home because there were all these detours. And I did call 911 because I saw the accident happen. But once I called and once the traffic eased up, I left. I wasn't going to stay there. But I think that's part of the Good Samaritan law. If you see the thing, in this case, they use an ox. In those days, there weren't cars with accidents or people on bicycles with accidents or whatever. But I think Susan's right. I think it applies to the Good Samaritan law and just making the effort to do the right thing.
And unfortunately, in our country, we had to find ways to protect the Good Samaritan from then being sued for something that happened. Okay, exactly. But what I want to do is be sure that we broaden the concept. Somebody else's problem isn't just their problem. Is that a broader way to look at it? Whether it's the ox or whether whatever else it is. By the way, the rabbis will expand this. A lost garment. Same thing, a lost garment. And you are supposed to do what you can to get the item back. But more than that, if someone is struggling, look, I want to say very clearly, over the course of this Chevra Torah, every once in a while, a member of our community has been in serious difficulty. Invariably, someone from this community has reached out and tried to be of help. That doesn't mean that it always succeeded. It didn't always succeed. But the feeling of community. Now, the question was raised, what about a non-Jew? There's going to be two answers. In other words, what if the ox is a Gentile?
But
Okay,
they're still part
Okay.
of your community.
so
Yeah.
what do you do? Answer being the standard twofold rabbinic answer in the Talmud. This law, according to what the Hebrew says, lo tireh et shor achicha, whether it's your brother, the translation fellow Israelite, the law is for the social structure of the Jewish community. That's what the initial statement will be. Then the rabbis throw in a kicker, which, ladies and gentlemen, is hugely important. Mipnei darkei shalom. Anyone pick up on what that phrase means? I got Donna.
May I guess?
Pardon?
May I guess? I think it means love God with all your heart, your neighbor as yourself.
Okay. Mipnei darkei shalom. Donna Shapiro. Yes.
From the face of the way of peace. I don't know.
Oh, you did a translation. Great. Okay. Okay, but mipnei in this case, because of. Mipnei, for the sake of. Mipnei darkei shalom. Derech darkei, the paths of peace. For the sake of the paths of peace. Many pieces of Torah legislation are specifically aimed at Jewish community. And then the rabbis say, but you know, mipnei darkei shalom, help your non-Jewish neighbor's ox get home too. So in a certain kind of a way, it's a lesser obligation. Mipnei darkei shalom, as opposed to mitzvah. But the rabbis were able to take a literal Torah text and change it to meet growing ethical sensibilities. And that mipnei darkei shalom is all over the place in Jewish law. It is all over the Jewish law that you don't do this because this is restricted to your obligation for Jews, but mipnei darkei shalom will do it for everybody. So it is a really important concept. Okay? When it says, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself, I assure you, it does not mean your non-Jewish neighbor. That's not what that text means. On the other hand, mipnei darkei shalom, for the sake of peace, you do it.
Stan, Mara has a question.
Mara.
Are you required to risk your life to save another?
Thanks for asking that question.
Are you required to risk your life? The word risk is a tough one. And I would say that within normal parameters of risk, you are. You are indeed. But you are not required to sacrifice your life. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You're not required to sacrifice your life. But you are required to go beyond, oh, that's an inconvenience, or I'm a little bit scared, or this could be risky. Yes, you should do that. And by the way, there's another example of mipnei darkei shalom. If a wall falls on someone on Shabbat, you're walking by, obviously, where are you going when you're walking by?
To synagogue.
Okay, as long
Setting.
as we have the principle clearly in hand. You're on your way to synagogue. You see a wall that has just fallen. You don't know who's under the wall. You see, like in the Wizard of Oz, you see 2 feet, and you don't know, who's under that thing. So you are required 2 things. One, to remove enough so that you can tell whether the person is still breathing.
Mhm.
If the person is still breathing, then you have the question of Jew or non-Jew. What is it? What are you supposed to do? And technically speaking, it's Jew. You challenge Shabbat, you violate Shabbat to save a Jewish life. But mipnei darkei shalom. You don't want it going around the neighborhood. Hey, Stan walked by and saw a wall fall on Chris. Stan took one look. Oh, it's a Chris, and walked away.
Oh my God.
You don't.
God forbid.
You don't want to do that. Mipnei darkei shalom. You rescue human life because there are bigger issues at stake. We're going to move on from here, but I am really hitting at a moral standard. Al tit alem. Don't hide yourself. That's really basic stuff. Okay, but there's more good stuff. Don't blind yourself. Lehitalem actually means blind, but don't blind yourself. Don't hide yourself. Don't pretend. Okay, but we're going to go on. So if you saw the ox, you got to return it. Okay, and you should do the same with that person's ass, with a person's garment, anything that your fellow Israelite loses. Don't blind yourself. Don't hide yourself. Don't deny it. But then again, if it's a non-Jew, mipnei darkei shalom. But now we go into the fun stuff. Verse 5. Let's see, who should read verse 5? Okay, Rebecca, would you read verse 5? Do you have it on page 1324?
I have it. 22 verse 5.
Yes.
A woman shall not wear anything that pertains to a man, nor shall a man put on a woman's garment. For whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord your God.
I have to tell you, this is a huge verse. What does it immediately bring to mind?
Women
Oh,
shouldn't wear pants, etc.
Yeah.
Okay, women should not wear pants. Ladies and gentlemen, it is expressly forbidden for women to wear clothing identified as male clothing. Forbidden. When is it permitted?
Purim.
Purim.
Oh.
On Purim, it is permitted. On Purim, it's also permitted to drink a little bit. Steve Miller, you asked about kilts. I'm not going to respond to that, okay?
Okay.
Why George straight away?
Our kilts, okay.
Kilts are men's clothing.
Kilts are
True.
male clothing in Scotland.
Scotland.
The answer is clear. Okay, now, don't put on female clothing. Why would people, according to the rabbis, as they want to understand this, why would people want to put on clothing of another gender?
I don't know.
Okay, I see Rebecca, and then Cindy.
Well, according to the Tanakh that I'm looking at, it says because of to avoid pagan rituals.
Okay, first of all, anything bad in the world that we could attach to pagan ritual, that's a good answer. Yes, we don't do that. We call that, and again, the Hebrew phrase is chukat hagoyim. Chukat hagoyim, it's what the Gentile does. We don't do it. They all run around in the wrong clothing. We can't do it. Okay, Cindy.
It might be to deceive others and get out of responsibilities of your gender, such as maybe not serving in the army or other responsibilities.
Well, I was doing research. For this. And I turned to Ibn Ezra, one of my most favorite commentators. And I had to be very careful. This is live stream. And I want to make it clear what's going to be said next. According to Ibn Ezra, but not according to Stanley Davids. You got that? Are we good? Okay. Women putting on men's clothing might want to go to war with the men and they want to be able to serve, or they might want to take a job which is assigned to a man. Ibn Ezra says black on white, and I quote in English, women were created only to have children.
Donna has her hand up.
Okay. So there's a lot of deception that could be with changing clothes. And the rabbis say sometimes women put on male clothing to hang out with the guys. Sometimes women put on male clothing so they can become involved with other women sexually. Nothing good comes of men putting on women's clothing, women putting on men's clothing, except for Purim. And no, Steve, there isn't a theatrical exemption. It's a problem.
Oh, I love Julie Andrews and Liza Minnelli.
Howard.
Yep.
Well, I played a trans.
Rashi says that the Torah forbids only a garment which leads to abomination.
Rashi is more liberal, excuse me, than Ibn Ezra. You're right. Rashi is more liberal. Ibn Ezra's comment is not liberal. Mostly the rabbis will agree. Men put on women's clothing, women put on men's clothing so as to engage in sexual impropriety. I want to, I think I'm choking because I've never read this verse in public before. One of the commentaries said, this goes to men should not shave the hair under their armpits or around their genitals.
Yes, the women did.
Yes, it certainly does.
I didn't think they did that long ago. Did you?
Understand, why do they make such a rule?
Boy, the Greeks would have been in big trouble.
Why would they make such a rule? Risa?
I think that we've learned that there's a lot of LGBTQ kind of references in the Torah and the Talmud, and they're trying to discourage it without using the words.
You are right on topic. There are significant LGBTQ plus references in the Talmud, which later generations seek to obliterate. so that we can pretend that transgender, for example, never happened until the middle 20th century. Okay? And they want to, there are categories. One is tumtum. There are other categories of sexual alternatives in the Talmud. Mostly it's willfully ignored. I reference you to a fabulous book coming out in January, edited by
Stanley.
There is
Yay,
there is a chapter in there which specifically deals with the question Risa raised. The effort to obliterate the reality of LGBTQ, transgender, by pretending it didn't exist or the rabbis didn't mean what they said. But ladies and gentlemen, they meant what they said. And there were gay, lesbian people in ancient times. There were people of at least a third gender, if not a fourth gender. And they were known. And they were not abominations. I repeat, they were not abominations in the Talmudic world. They became abominations as part of the interaction between Jewish law and Catholic law, where items were viewed very differently. And into the modern age, we would view transgender, gay, lesbian, whatever, as abominations. Never were viewed that way in ancient times. I pause, deep breath. This simple little verse hides a universe. Hides a universe. Any questions about that? A woman must not put on man's apparel. Why would it be abhorrent? Only if it leads to sexual crimes. That would make it abhorrent. Sukasa.
You're muted.
Muted.
You're-
Sue, sorry.
There are, in the Torah, it says that you're not supposed to lay with another man and so forth. Obviously, it was going on if they felt that they should address it. But
Totally.
yeah, so, but you're saying, I think I heard you just say that it was not considered an abomination. If it wasn't an abomination, why was it put in the Torah and stated as an abomination?
Children, birth, family. What they understood gay behavior to do, lesbian behavior, transgender, whatever,
doesn't produce children.
Doesn't produce children in that age.
Gotcha.
And therefore, you lose the continuity of the covenant. That's an important thing.
You have Steve
Interesting.
Miller and
Thank
Merle.
you.
Steve Miller.
You commented that the Talmud is not so harsh and the Torah is so black and white, especially for people who believe the Torah was literally written by God. What allowed the rabbis? I mean, that seems to be more than interpretation. It seems to be an out and out rewriting of the text.
One little snide aspect of my response would be, so what's wrong with rewriting the text? But I'm not going to say that. Steve, the rabbis were fully cognizant of what they did and denied it totally. They developed, you know this, they developed the concept that at Mount Sinai, not only was the Torah Shebichtav, the written Torah, given to the Israelites, but the Torah Sheba'al Peh was given to the Israelites. That means the Torah Ba'al Peh, the oral law, is the Talmud, is the rabbinic exaggerations, expansions, and whatever, and changes. They believe that what they were doing is uncovering what God revealed in the oral law to Moses during the 40-year wandering.
So if that's true, why do the Haredi reject what they did and go back to the Torah?
One major Orthodox decisor came up with the comment, Kol chadash asur min haTorah. Everything new is forbidden in the Torah.
Huh.
Think about that. If that were literally true, the Orthodox world couldn't survive.
That's for sure.
And he said it, he believed it, because he believes that what the rabbis were doing in expanding the law was not new. God gave it at Sinai. They were uncovering ancient truths. This is really, really important to understand. And when they look at Reform Judaism, they say, that was never said by God at Sinai. How do you know? How do you know? Really? God didn't say that. God said this, God didn't say that. No. Women reading Torah is chadash. It's new, it's forbidden. It was never said by God at Sinai. It makes a difficult argument. So there was one thing that happened in the 1st century CE, something called the Prose Bull, Prozbul. And if you're interested, look it up. It's really an interesting legal concept, Prozbul. And in the Prose Bull, Hillel was dealing with a problem. Here's the problem. If the land is supposed to go back to an original owner in the sabbatical year, then people won't give a loan against the land in the 5th year or the 6th year of the cycle, because they're going to lose their collateral. I don't know if they use that word, but they're going to lose their collateral. Hillel developed a system whereby the land, if a loan was needed, was transferred into the ownership of a rabbinic court. And that collateral can never be lost.
Wow.
Okay? Prose Bull is a huge, major, big example of what, Steve, we're talking about. Prose Bull is in the Torah? No way. No, I mean, you can't even fight to find a hint. Not there. Hillel, who had a pretty good grasp of the invention of escrow. Thanks, Ben. Hillel had a pretty good idea about what the law was all about. He changed the law and insisted that the change was implicit in the Torah text.
And Merle has a question.
Merle.
And then Donna.
So if the assumption in those days was that a woman's job was only to have children, raise them, etc., what happens if you can't have children? I mean, it's not always the woman's fault that you can't have a child.
If you go and you're reading from the book of Samuel about the birth of Samuel and the crying, tearful plea of Hannah, praying to God for a child is read during Rosh Hashanah in traditional synagogue.
Right.
I did not permit it to be read in my synagogue because that reading drove home the concept that infertility is a response to God for something the woman did wrong. That is standard. Okay, tomorrow, what are we offering here?
Saying it's not the Bible's view that women are only for children. That was Ibn Ezra. The Bible has a totally different view on the matter. And you might say men are only for children because that's what happens in Genesis 1. Purvu is addressed to men and women. So Ibn Ezra is being Ibn Ezra, but the Bible has a totally different...
Bible has a different view of the woman's role.
Yeah.
But the question of infertility being a response to God for something that a human being did is a common ancient belief.
But excuse me, Arthur's had his hand up forever.
Okay,
Arthur.
1 second, please. Tamara, do you want to finish the thought?
Yes, infertility in the Torah is not viewed as punishment. The most important, some of the most important women are infertile. God intervenes, but infertility itself is not a sign of God's displeasure or for sin. That's why Sarah is infertile, Hannah is infertile, and so on. So it's we tend to impose things on the Bible that come from later cultures.
Okay, we could talk about that.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn to Arthur. Arthur?
Whenever I have problem with the rules, I change the perception of my rules against the perception of science, because I believe God does not contradict science. So the women's dress should be according to the situation. Then if it says in some occasion they are permitted to have pants on, so we have to extend it to many other situations that has not been specified in Torah.
I thank you. I thank you for that. And that's a very, very good point. The rabbis will expand the Torah understanding as their understanding of science expands.
Oh.
Yes, I would certainly agree with that. Donna, we're coming close to the end, unfortunately. I didn't say hello to Barbara. I didn't say hello to Natalie before, but Barbara, okay. Hi, Nat. Barbara, okay. Donna.
I had my hand up, Rabbi.
Pardon?
I had my hand up about the land and inheritance and property. You were talking before fertility, and I had a question.
Please go ask your quick question.
I found out from my sister that our ancestry, we built Pembroke Castle in Wales. My family from way back. Is there any way to get it back?
I suspect that if you sign it over to your rabbi and allow the rabbi to pursue it, good things could happen. But we'll talk later. Okay.
Hey, dear, thank you.
I would love to have a castle. Okay.
Doesn't tell the truth. My half-sister told me.
Does this group get visitation rights to the castle?
If I ever do, when I'm a star, I'm going to rent it. But see what with Prince Charles, like King of England now, who wrote me, his secretary.
I think we have veered from our topic just a little bit. There are important comments, and taking up what Tamara said, but expanding. Mara says If it's not the biblical view that women are only for children, why are the women who are infertile and then through prayer are rewarded with a child? That's a really good point. And it's something that it's a conversation. It is a conversation. I wonder whether the biblical stories about important women who are infertile preserve precisely the kind of prejudices against infertile women. Yeah. Okay, I mean, that is a great question, but look what happens in Jewish tradition. Look what happens tomorrow in Jewish tradition. Infertile women are almost viewed as contagious. Please go ahead, you finish, and then we're going to go to Kaddish. Tamara? No, okay. It's a real discussion. This is a topic. I want to mention that Monday, September 12th, 5:30 Zoom conversation. If anyone is on the live stream, wants to join, please send me an email. I'll send you the link.
I sent you an email.
Okay, and I will send you out a link by email for you to join us. Ladies and gentlemen, you push me against the wall, you challenge, God's going to punish you for that. Nevertheless, that's what makes this group so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to move now to Kaddish. Those who have passed away during the past month, excuse me, Harviz Dangelpur, Shirley Cotton, Yen Hui Fan. Yortzeigs that occurred during the past week. Marietta Bach, Sylvia Band, Gordon Bodick, Francis Brody, William Chase and Ruth Cheslaw, Lawrence Chiswick, Raphael Cohn, Beverly Cooperman, Joshua Davidow, Joe Eimer, Stephen Elkanan, Ruth Epstein, Ben Evans, David Flansbaum, Barbara Flicker, Elsie Fogelman, Pauline Foreman, Selma Freed, Fred First, Ethel Geffner, Larry Gershman, Miriam Goldberg, Glenn Goldstein, Grace Gottlieb, Jean Gould, Irving Grauer, Gloria Gray, Paul Hunter, Rabbi Joseph Hurwitz, Winnie Coltman, Zev Karkomi, Jack Caston, Russell Kavanaugh, John Kim, Preston Klein, Rosalind Krasnow, Irene Krell, Hugo Kran, Carolee Landsberg, Lisa Beth Laxer, Mitchell Lerner, Lena Levitch, Helen Levin, Barbara Lewis, Howard Lynn, Saeed Mahami, Danny Mendel, Larissa Maravina, Seymour Nadelman, Philip Pacholsky, Phil Pacholsky, Leah Phillips, Stephen Plager, Leslie Pollack, Alex Redmansky, Molly Becker Redmond, James Rhodes, Michael Robbins, Carl Rosen, Ruth Rawson, Stephen Rubenstein, Loretta Safro, Margaret Schoenberger, Pascal Schwartz, Leah Serlin, Eric Shannon, Leon Sharp, Mendel Shohan, Emmanuel Sigaloff, Philip Silver, Jacob Silverstein. If there are other names to be mentioned and remembered now, please speak their names aloud or speak them in your hearts. I apologize for names that I have mispronounced or names that were unintentionally omitted. We bear in mind as well the names of those who died in defense of the United States and in defense of the state of Israel. We bear in mind as well also the names of those who died through senseless acts of terror and horror of all sorts. We bear in mind the names of those who have no one to remember them. And we join in the mourning of the United Kingdom. on the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. We join in Kaddish. Yitkadal, Kadash, Shmei Rabbah, Yalmad Divrach Urtei, Yamlich Malchutei, V'chayechon, Uvyomechon, V'chayechol Beit Yisrael, V'adavizman Kariv, Dimru Amen.
Amen.
Yehi Shmei Rabbah, Yalam Li'olmei Almaya, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitpamam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shmei Purusha, Kristu, Ve'elam Nikol Mirchata V'shirata, Truskata V'nechamata, Na'miran V'alma V'imru Amen. Yehi Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen.
Amen.
Oseh Shalom V'imru
Shalom Aleinu.
Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. May God, who makes peace in the high places, make peace in our hearts, make peace in our homes, make peace in the household of Israel, make peace among all the families and nations of earth, and let us say,
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi. We love you so much.
Shabbat shalom.
have a wonderful Shabbat,
Thank you, everybody.
everybody.
You too.
And we'll
Thank you
see
for
each
letting us
other-
push the
We'll see
limits.
each other Monday evening, and all the other times, the things that are going on. Thank you for being you. Thank you very much for being part of this community. Love you all.
Thank you.